I simulated 10 seasons with Bugatti in F1 and this is what happened. We all know Bugatti for making some of the fastest cars ever produced, so how would they do in F1? Subscribe to the channel if you're looking forward to this one, and without wasting much more of your time, let's do this. We start off in season 1 and going from the back we begin in the bottom half. Bugatti locked out the back row with Haas and VCarb also not scoring any points. Gasly managed all of Alpine's 2, but Bottas and Zhou got 2 more points for Sauber, and obviously Albon carried Williams. Stroll was also 10th with just 10 points. In 9th it was Piastri before Alonso came in 8th with his 33rd win and 2 podiums. It was a close fight in the middle of the standings and Hamilton was 5th, 35 points ahead of his teammate. Perez was next with 4 podiums and no wins, so that leaves us with both Ferraris and Verstappen left to reveal. 3rd was Sainz with no wins, and so that meant that 14 wins were going to be shared between the top 2. And in 2nd it was Leclerc as Verstappen dominated big time. 11 wins and 16 podiums is pretty damn good, and he was nearly 100 points ahead of Leclerc. This obviously meant Red Bull were top in the constructors, and then it was Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren. Now onto the driver moves, and we start at Sauber as they acquired Stroll, with Martins filling in at Aston Martin and Zhou heading to Bugatti. Magnussen retired, which led to Sargent joining the American team, and Pourchaire went to Williams to complete the grid for season 2. We have power and durability reg changes for next year, so let's see if anything will change in the coming season. We only had one team not scoring any points this year, as Haas were the unfortunate ones who have Logan Sargent. Elsewhere, Ricciardo, Stroll, Ocon, Pourchaire and Buemi all scored no points as their teammates got all of them. Zhou scored Bugatti's first points of the sim in season 2 as Gasly got 10 for Alpine and Albon got 14. Martins only had 14 points as well as his teammate got 154. Perez was 9th, which is also crazy, and just ahead of him were the McLaren duo, with Piastri getting a win despite only having 85 points. Sainz was tied with Alonso for points as well, but he actually won a race. Hamilton managed 4th place as he got another win, and then came Verstappen in 3rd. So, Russell or Leclerc? Pretty sure we were in the same scenario in the last video, but if you saw that one, then you know that Charles Leclerc won the title as he got 26 points more than George, despite having 4 less wins. Mercedes and Ferrari were tied on points this year, and the order was similar across the standings. The only exception was Bugatti, who moved from 11th to 8th thanks to Zhou's 9 points. Into the driver moves, and at the end of the year, Ricciardo retired, which is quite surprising considering he normally stays for all 10 seasons. After a good year at Bugatti, Zhou moved into the VCarb seat, which meant we needed a new driver. That driver was Zhou's former teammate, Bottas, as a very good driver had been secured in that team. Tsunoda in turn went to Sauber, and Hauger moved to the other seat at VCarb. There'd be no new reg changes coming in season 3, so let's see if we'll get 3 different champions in 3 years. Not too much change at the back as Haas scored no points along with VCarb as Zhou had made a bad choice. Bottas scored 3 points for Bugatti and Pourchaire improved to 5. Albon still got 5 times as many though, so clearly that car was pretty good. Tsunoda got good points for Sauber and actually got as many as Martins in Aston Martin, who somehow kept his seat. Hamilton was 9th place as he only got 68 points, and Perez was 8th as he got just 70. Alonso showed that Martins was terrible by getting 119 points, and Piastri was ahead with 156. Russell managed to win this year as he was 5th, and in 4th it was Verstappen with 199 points. Sainz in 3rd meant there was either Norris or Leclerc who won the title in season 3. So who would it be? Norris got 5 wins, but it was Leclerc who made it 2 in a row for Ferrari as he got 299 points, 7 wins and 14 podiums. Ferrari finished 1st again in the constructors with McLaren 2nd and Mercedes dropped down to 4th. Sauber were a good 8th place and Bugatti was still a solid 9th. Into the moves, and we have another weird retirement. It was Alonso who, despite staying all 10 years last video, dipped out of the sport, which led to Perez returning to the Aston Martin team. Fittipaldi got in the Red Bull seat and Russell was dropped despite beating Hamilton convincingly. His replacement was Vesti, and Piastri was also replaced by Dennis Hauger. Iwasa got the VCarb seat and Stroll was dropped by Sauber with Behrman going to that team. We have massive reg changes coming as aero, chassis and durability were all getting affected. This is undoubtedly going to change a lot of things, so I'm looking forward to what happens in season 4. For season 4, there's already a lot that has changed. First up, Sargent has scored points. But apart from that, and also Buemi just disappearing from the grid, sorry about that, we've got good points being scored for Alpine and not for Aston Martin. Martins was mediocre and Perez was not much better as even Haas did better. Behrman got 33 points, but I'll spoil it, he didn't get all of those for Sauber. Hauger was pretty mid for McLaren, and next was Albon who completely carried Pourchaire with 48 points. Fittipaldi did about as well as Perez did in that Red Bull as he only got 62 points, and Vesti was also mid for Mercedes getting only 68. 8th. The surprise though was Bottas, who got 147 points for Bugatti and even won a race in Hungary. Just ahead of him was Hungary's master Hamilton, and 60 points up the road was Sainz with another win. 1 point ahead of him was Norris, who got 2 wins for McLaren, and after that it was Leclerc, as Verstappen was back on top for Red Bull. He even got the same amount of points as Leclerc did last season. Ferrari stayed on top despite this, and the order has changed a lot. Bugatti were up to 5th place, all thanks to Bottas, and oh look, Buemi's appeared. Williams stayed in 6th, but after that it was close as Alpine, Aston and Haas were all separated by 5 points. Sauber got 4 points, so it's time to discuss where drivers like Behrman went, and also where Daruvala came from. Well, at mid-season, Behrman went to Red Bull as Fittipaldi was dropped by the team, and Daruvala went to Sauber to replace Oli. At post-season, Perez retired, which led to Stroll returning to the team. Ocon was dropped after finally having a good season, and in came Sargent fresh off the back of his first points in the sim. Helga went to Haas, Maloney made his debut in this video with McLaren, and Pourchaire was deservedly replaced by Iwasa at Williams. A reserve driver called Neves went to VCarb as they must not have had any money left to sign an actual driver, and Hamilton was dropped by Mercedes as Bottas had impressed enough to return to the team. Sainz was also dropped as Behrman went to Ferrari and Crawford joined Red Bull. This coincided with Verstappen leaving the team as Russell joined Red Bull, and that was all of it for season 4. We've got power rig changes for season 5, so let's see if Bugatti can keep up this upward momentum. We were now up to 26 drivers on the grid in season 5, with VCarb and Buemi chilling in the final places. A massive shock was Crawford, who only got 6 points in a Red Bull. Granted, he probably only did half a season, but still, 6 points is shocking. That's the same as Tsunoda in a Sauber. Gasly did well for Alpine with 16 points, and Maloney and Martins were disappointing. 45 points by Albon and the Williams was the same as Vesti in the Mercedes, and he even got a podium. Next was Stroll with 61 points, and then came Fittipaldi, who must have got a move at mid-season. Ocon had 93 points after joining a team at mid-season, and next was Bottas in the Mercedes. We're still yet to see a Bugatti, so they've got themselves a top 4 finish. Behrman was 4th for Ferrari with 127 points, and then it's a big jump in 3rd as Norris had 265 with 5 wins. So, Leclerc versus Piastri at Bugatti. A title challenge in season 5? Well, the winner by 2 points was Oscar Piastri, as he got 274 points with 7 wins and 10 podiums. Leclerc only got 3 wins, but still got very close to winning. Bugatti could only get up to 3rd, but it was a good effort as they beat Mercedes and Red Bull. Now onto the driver moves, and a lot happened at mid-season, as you've probably already guessed. Vesti was dropped at Mercedes with Ocon going there, and Maloney and Crawford were both dropped, with Fittipaldi moving to McLaren and Behrman going to Red Bull. Pourchaire moved into Ferrari and Doohan replaced the reserve driver at VCarb. At post-season, Ocon retired from the sport, which led to Daruvala going to Mercedes, with Doohan heading to Sauber. Maloney joined VCarb and Sargent was dropped, leading to Fittipaldi going to Alpine. Vesti went to McLaren, and surprisingly, Piastri couldn't find a seat as Bugatti elected to replace him with Max Verstappen. At least he's got a championship though. There are no reg changes for season 6, and the chart shows that Bugatti are right up there with the best teams. It's come back down in season 6 to just 23 drivers, and at the back were the Hasses, followed by VCarb and Alpine. A lot less points were scored by teams at the back, and Aston Martin only got 12 points across both of their drivers. Therefore, the top 10 had all of the points, and we start with Mercedes in 9th and 10th, as Daruvala and Bottas were alright, but nothing special. We'll find out in a bit where Piastri went, but next is the first Ferrari and then both Red Bulls. Russell and Behrman were very equally matched. In 4th, Vesti did well and was only 40 points off 3rd place Leclerc in the other Ferrari, so that once again leaves us with a Bugatti fighting for the championship. So, Norris or Verstappen? Well, this time it was more convincing as Max won by 91 points, getting 11 wins and 15 podiums along the way. Norris did well to get 5 wins, meaning the top 2 hogged every race win, but it wasn't enough as Bugatti had their second champion in 2 years. This meant that they jumped to the second in the constructors, but with no second driver, it'd be borderline impossible for them to win the team's championship. Into the moves, and as you've probably guessed, Daruvala was replaced at Mercedes by Piastri. At postseason, Russell retired from the sport, leading to Leclerc going to Red Bull, Norris going to Ferrari again, Sainz returning home to McLaren, and Verstappen getting replaced by Behrman at Bugatti. Sargent was the driver picked by Red Bull to replace the Brit. Bugatti are running a ruthless business here. If you win the championship, you get sacked. The R&D chart shows a very changeable top 5, so can we see any change to a champion in season 7? The split between the front and the back is getting even larger now, as only 16 points were scored by the bottom 6 teams. This is not what we want to see, I can't lie. Next in 9th was Bottas in the Mercedes, as he once again was kind of mid. Sargent and Pourchaire came next as they were both destroyed by their teammates, and Behrman did well for Bugatti even if he didn't win the championship. Vesti was 5th with 3 wins and a good points haul for McLaren, and next in 4th was Piastri with 221 and 4 wins. It was very close as 3rd place had 226 points, and that was Leclerc as he got 1 more win. He couldn't touch Norris though, as he was 20 points up the road in 2nd, which meant that Carlos Sainz was our champion in season 7 for McLaren, as he managed 5 wins along the way. This obviously meant McLaren won the constructors, but it was pretty close at the top. There weren't many moves this year, but they consisted of Bugatti dropping another one of their drivers as Behrman was replaced by Pierre Gasly, Verstappen went to Alpine, and Pourchaire was replaced by Crawford at Ferrari. Finally, for season 8 we have aero and chassis reg changes, which hopefully should fix this very straight looking graph. Once again, not many points were scored at the back, but at least it was more than last year. Iwasa was actually better than Albon in that Williams and got 10 as he took them above Aston Martin. Oh yeah, and Verstappen didn't even score a point for Alpine, so that is proof that he is a car merchant. Moving on, we come to Gasly, who made sure Bugatti got nowhere near the front as he only got 72 points. Crawford and Sargent were next, and then it was Bottas to finish off the bad drivers in good teams. Piastri came 5th with over 130 more points than Bottas, and he also had 2 wins, as did Norris in 4th with 17 more points. Then it was our reigning champion Sainz in 3rd, leaving us with Vesti and Leclerc to fight for the championship, and by a slim 15 points, Frederic Vesti was our season 8 champion with 6 wins ahead of Leclerc. McLaren stayed on top in the constructors, and once again it was very close behind them. Onto the moves, and at mid-season Crawford was replaced by Deruvala at Ferrari. Makes his 76 points all the more impressive, to be honest. Sorry for the disrespect. Freedom Merchant number 2. But at post-season, Sainz called it a day with Hamilton returning from out of the shadows to replace him. Leclerc was dropped by Red Bull with Fittipaldi going there, and finally Crawford returned with Alpine for season 9. More rig changes were coming for next year as power and durability were getting affected, and I can't even describe this, it's just a mess. On to season 9. Finally, after seasons of 2 completely different halves of the grid, points were finally getting scored all round. All by 2 teams, but we'll excuse that. Iwasa and Albon were a great pair at Williams, and Stroll and Martin scored alright for Aston. Next was Gasly once again in 9th with 58 points, and then it was Bottas with 70. Sargent and Pourchaire were in 7th and 6th, with Fittipaldi actually doing well for Red Bull, getting a win and 185 points. In 4th we had Piastri as he got 3 times as many points as Bottas, as well as 2 wins. Hamilton's return was a good one as he managed 2 wins and 3rd place in the standings. This meant once again Vesti was in a title fight, this time with Norris. And once again Frederic Vesti was our champion. It wasn't really close this time as he was 50 points clear of Norris, and the same goes in the constructors. Williams have finally woken up and even beat Bugatti with the power of 2 drivers instead of just 1. On to the moves now, and we start with Albon retiring. Gasly went to Williams in turn, and Hulkenberg moved to Bugatti. Yeah. Their team is slowly getting worse, but at least they had won a few championships. Martins then went to Haas, and Deruvala moved to Aston Martin. And finally, Vesti had once again got 2nd place in the championship fired from their team, as Norris was replaced by Leclerc at Ferrari for season 10. There's no reg changes, so let's move on to the final season. Everyone was all in order for the final year as the Haas's, VCARB, and Sauber teams lined up in 2s. Hulkenberg only managed 18 points for Bugatti as Gasly and Iwasa did well for Williams. Deruvala heavily carried at Aston as he was 1 point ahead of Norris, who came back into the sport at mid-season. Sargent stayed in the top 10 with 5 podiums, and then it was Behrman. Leclerc managed a win for Ferrari on his return to the team, and Fittipaldi kept up the good work. Hamilton got another few wins in 4th, and Pourchaire did well to finish 3rd with 4 wins. Once again, that leaves us with Vesti in a title fight, but this time with Piastri. But he wasn't going to get sacked this time as he got 280 points and beat Vesti by 56. Finally, McLaren had been toppled as the standings were incredibly close everywhere you looked. And if you are curious, Norris did join Bugatti at mid-season. That's why they somehow got 96 points. And that ends another successful sim for the 11th team. I hope you enjoyed and hope you're looking forward to Strolling to Glory, my new career mode series, which should come out soon. But if you want something to watch in the meantime, why not check out what happened when I simulated 10 years into the future on F1 24.